Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview.
Right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got author Sheelagh Whittaker with me. So welcome, Sheelagh.
Well, nice to see you.
Well, it's nice to see you too. So I'm excited to talk about the book, but let's start by talking about you a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background, what you do, and how you got into writing.
Okay. Well, my background really is that I was a Western Canadian.
Yeah.
Grew up there and have those kind of Western values, but then moved east in Canada to do some graduate work and moved into the business world. And it was at a time when women's lib was becoming pretty popular.
Right.
And people were looking at ways of integrating women better into the workplace. Sure. And I was incredibly lucky. I was sort of there when people were looking for me.
Sometimes it's all about timing.
It is sometimes all about timing. And so, I had great opportunities and also very interesting work, a series of very interesting jobs. And in the final analysis, I was able to become the CEO of a couple of different companies.
Amazing.
And, that was pretty new stuff in those days.
Yeah, for sure. I've told this story many times. My wife's an executive for a company, and I've watched. As a guy, as a man, I've always heard about glass ceiling, about the struggles that women have in the workplace, and I was just blind to it. Just didn't really think too much about it. And I've been my wife and I have been together now 20 years, and just watching her kind of bang into that ceiling and watching, her struggle to advance and to get somewhere where she was, in my opinion, the most qualified for whatever it was. I've completely changed that mindset. It wasn't that I didn't think it existed. It wasn't affecting me personally, and I wasn't paying enough attention. So that was on me. But it's definitely there. And I've witnessed her struggles, and she's broke through it. She's gotten past it.
Good for her.
It's she's been with the company for 25 years and she worked her way up. She's got past it. It just took longer than it probably should have, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. At certain points when you look at it, sometimes it takes longer because women take out some time to have a baby.
Yeah, right. Right. And, the bad part about that is historically, we've kind of punished women for taking that time off.
Yeah.
It's not that the job or a job's not necessarily there when they come back, but they definitely miss out on advancement opportunities because they're not there for, a period of time, which that isn't fair.
No, but I think you're right. The other thing they're finding these days in the research is that women are losing out in the remote working too.
Really?
Like that, yes. That there's nothing like, we started it with COVID, we embraced it.
Yeah.
But now they're finding that there is an advantage to being in the workplace at least a few days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of working at home, but I do believe that on occasion you need to go into the office. I think you need that interaction with other people, the face-to-face interaction that you don't necessarily get at home.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think we need to be in the office 5 days a week anymore. That may not make sense for a lot of companies, but I do think we need a little bit of time in there just for that personal interaction.
Yeah. And so that an additional dimension of the other person.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you just don't bond with somebody remotely like you do in person.
No, you don't.
And I think it's important, like if I were a company or, if I owned a company, it would be important to me that everybody was kind of pulling in the same direction. And that's a little more difficult when you're not together. When you're it's not impossible. It's just a little more difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So the book is Through the Glass Ceiling, Reflections on Feminism from the C-Suite. So explain that title too.
Okay. Well, the Reflections on Feminism from the C-Suite is sort of that I was lucky, like I said, and privileged. And I did break the glass ceiling, as you say, a couple of times.
Yeah, good for you.
And I got to sit around the table and look. If you imagine the glass ceiling to be a glass ceiling with boardrooms above, got to look down at what was the experience of those who were trying to move along, and how to help them, what hindered them. But then in addition, I took the opportunity to look over my own career, which was a lot of fun, both the career and looking at it, and saying, okay, what did I do that might have been a little different?
Yeah.
And I mean, we sort of touched on one there in that I had children, of course. Well, not of course, but I never took very long when it just wasn't my taste. It wasn't that I was that I was sacrificing something. The children and I were better off if I was working.
I totally get that. I mean, some people are just at their best at work. My wife's like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It honestly, I kind of look at it as whatever makes you the happiest is probably going to be best for everybody.
Exactly. That's a very good way of looking at it, and very accurate. And I remember, at a time when I was trying to decide these things, I was looking at my aluminum refrigerator door.
Yeah.
And I was pretty obsessed with keeping it spotless.
Yep.
And I just thought, Sheelagh, there are more interesting things to do than staying here, keeping your aluminum door spotless.
Fair. We all like a clean door, though.
Yeah, we do like a clean door. Yes. So from the vantage point of the book, it's talking about not only myself. I talked about some other females from different, we're using the gen terms now. So I'm a boomer.
Yeah.
And my sister was part of what she's older, and she was part of what they call the silent generation.
Yes.
And I have a very good friend in this building who's now 97, and she had an amazing career, and she was part of what they called the Great Generation.
That's right. That was our war generation.
Exactly. And then I have a daughter who is Gen X.
Yes.
And a granddaughter who's Gen Z. That's the Canadian in me here. You probably would call it Gen Z.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So I got input from each of them.
Oh, I love that. So you got multi-generational input.
Yes, I did. And I had them write it. I said, you write it. I'm not going to change a word. And then I'm going to put it in the book, and people are going to see from different perspectives. Like, what does the Gen Z person, asked was,
so we lost you for just a second, but now we're back. So yeah, continue.
yes. Well, I was very interested in, for example, my Gen Z daughter who lives in New York, granddaughter. She's a granddaughter. She lives in New York.
Yeah.
And when I read what she had written about how feminism had touched her, and I realized that sort of more than 50 years had gone by since it touched me.
Yeah.
It was actually quite profound. I must admit that I was amazed, and I didn't change a word, even though she's 17, but it was perfect, and I just put it right in the book there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, she's right at that age, so she's getting ready to
Mm-hmm.
start her career, in the
Yes.
next whatever 5-10 years. So that's a great person to talk to, I think, because she's right at the beginning and hasn't really faced all of the challenges that everybody else has yet.
Yes. Whereas my 97-year-old friend, who got her PhD in 1950, I have to tell you.
Very nice.
But what her story was that she had a husband and children, and she went out to a nice restaurant and said to him, "This isn't enough. You know, if I can't go," and he said, "But I need you. The kids need you. We need you to stay in the house and make everything run." And she says,
Right.
"Well, it isn't enough for me." And she said, "If you won't let me go out and find a bigger place in the world, I'm going to have affairs."
Oh, that's quite the ultimatum.
That's quite the ultimatum, and it worked. It worked.
Well, especially back in the 50s, that was not easy
Oh
for
no.
women
Mm-mm.
to find a job. For one thing, at least a job where you have some advancement opportunity.
Yes,
But
yeah,
then
and
you have to get buy-in from your partner
yeah.
in order to really, back then at least, you had to
Oh,
do
sure,
that,
you
or
did.
there's
Oh,
no
I think,
way you'd be able to.
yeah. One of the things I felt strongly when I was looking at it was that I would be quite happy to pay 100% of what I earned to somebody like a good nanny,
Yeah.
so that I had high quality childcare going on, and that person had a good job, and I had a good job.
Well, right,
Now,
because it wasn't necessarily about the money.
no, it wasn't about the
It was
money at
about the
all.
fulfillment you were getting from
Yeah,
working. Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that you took the time to write a book about it, because we talk about the glass ceiling quite a bit, but I don't know that anybody's ever looked at it from different generational points of view. I love that. Yeah, that's to me uh, a great book to just start the conversation. Like this would be a great book club book.
I think so. I agree with you. I'm part of a book club, and I think, I don't know if I'll suggest it to my book club. It feels a bit vain, but it is a great conversation starter,
Right.
because you say, okay, what are you looking for? And it there is a point at which I write about this in the book. One of my friends said, "Well, Sheelagh, what is feminism for you?" And I thought for a minute, because I didn't have an easy answer, and I said, "Free to be you and me."
I love that.
Now
And it's so true.
that was a Marlo Thomas album when my kids were little, "Free to be you and me." And it just says it so accurately.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, uh, no matter what their gender is, should have the opportunity to make the life for themselves that they want to make.
Exactly. That's very well put. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it shouldn't be dependent. It should be based on ability. If you've got the ability to do a job and you can get along with your coworkers and do all that stuff, then you should have the same opportunities.
Yes. Yes. Well, you said it well too. Fulfillment. Like,
Yeah.
if it's something that fulfills you, usually you're good at it.
That is true. That is true.
And so it should be about each individual's fulfillment. What do they want their best self to be? Now, it turned out for me, and I learned a lot about myself, as I tell you, by writing this, because
I'm sure.
I said, Holy Moses, did that happen? Where was I that day? But anyway, one of the things that I realized was that strategy is my strength.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
how
Well, that's
would
probably
I?
why you're so good at running companies.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're growing up, you don't know what your strength is. You don't know that, you might have been a good Napoleon, say.
Right.
But when I look back at it, I think, okay, Sheelagh, you were a strategist, but you didn't know, but you had opportunity to demonstrate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you took advantage of it.
And I took advantage of it. I describe my career sometimes as incremental opportunism.
That's a terrific way to describe just working your way through a company, because that's kind of it.
I'd be really happy. I don't remember ever wanting to quit a job I was doing, but someday someone come along and say, hey, Sheelagh, do you want to do such and such? And I'd say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And it worked.
Yeah, I love that, and now you're paying it forward. You're kind of sharing some of that.
Yes, that's true. Now I'm kind of paying it forward.
Yeah, I
And
always
sharing.
thought that with the workplace, what kind of disservice are we doing to ourselves if we're eliminating or holding back half of the workplace? And it's not just women. A lot of times minorities get caught up in that too. So ideally, to have your best business environment, you should be having it more skill-based, and you have your best people, no matter what gender, in the roles that they're best at. And that's not always the case. But if I were running a company, that's how I'd operate. Why would you eliminate half of your workforce?
Yes. No, I there again, I think you're very accurate. I think if you want to succeed, you've got to use the best people.
Yes.
Not some abstract criteria like where they went to school or something. You need to say, okay, this guy, I've seen the output. That's great. We can really use that, and we should advance it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And another thought occurred to me. There's a lot of men that don't want to be in a leadership role. They're happy to just be a cog in the wheel. But if you're eliminating the other half of the workforce, a lot of times guys, men are kind of forced into roles that they're not really suited for. And then it doesn't go well for anybody with that. So I think if it was even, it's just skill-based, you're putting the best person in the job, for the job, that wants to be in the job, it's going to make everybody happy. Because then you've got people that, I don't need to, if everything's equal and I don't want to be a leader, I just want to be part of the machine, you can do that.
Yeah. They did an interesting study somewhere where they had resumes for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And they took off the gender. They took off male or female. That. It was a research project, and they found out that if you knew the gender, way more males were chosen. Yeah. But if they didn't know the gender, they just knew the resume, then it was much more equal or even more females. That there was an innate bias in these resume reviews toward the male gender.
Yeah, I totally believe that, because that's played out, over the decades. That's how it's been, and it's such a silly way to operate. And I mean, listen, if you're great at a job, but you're a terrible person, and you don't get you don't get the job because of that, then that's different. But if you're qualified, you go through the interviews, you do well, there's no red flags there, you should get the job.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, that applies also to race.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Because
and all the things, like it applies to handicapped, it applies to race, it applies, really, we're talking about egalitarianism.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Everybody needs to be on the same playing field, equal footing. Then it's up to you. If everything's equal, then your hard work or your skills at whatever it is, then that can shine.
Yes.
If it doesn't matter how hard you work because it's already predetermined who's getting promoted, then what's the motivation to work hard?
Good question. Good question. What is it?
Well, I think we're running into that, especially since 2020, because you've got this whole generation that they look at work a lot different than those of us that kind of grew up through the 80s, 90s, 70s. We look at it different. You got this younger generation; they're looking at it like this isn't worth the effort that I'm putting into it for what you're paying me. And so what's happening? We can't find people to work in restaurants and skilled positions. And, we're, like here in the States, we've had so many restaurants close because they can't find workers. Because they don't pay them enough.
Because we don't pay them enough. It's a hard job it's a hard job working in a restaurant.
It's so hard. And I don't blame younger people because honestly, we should have been doing that decades ago and just saying, hey, you're not paying us enough. I'm not taking that job.
There was this phrase, which I like, called equal pay for work of equal value.
Yes, I like that.
I like that phrase.
Yeah. Because that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, I grew up, minimum wage when I was 18 was $3.35 an hour, and back then, if you offered me an extra nickel an hour, I'd leave. I'd be like, all right, I'm out. I was making $3.35. You offered me $3.50. I'm leaving. Because back then that a few extra dollars would make a difference. But now the cost has risen faster than what the pay has kept pace with. So you've got people that are getting further and further behind. Our young people can't afford to buy houses, all of that stuff, and it all goes to the pay.
Yes, and all those things were in my mind because I have a son living in New York. I have daughters living in Toronto. I have
those are not cheap places to live.
They're not cheap places to live. I have grandkids coming along in university or looking for where will they work or live.
Right.
I must say my heart was breaking today for the people that had established, they had a life core in Los Angeles, and all of a sudden it's gone,
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, we were talking about that. I had two good friends, two active friends that just completely lost their homes in the last couple of days. So they're fine, thank goodness, but they lost everything. And I just can't even get my head around that. Because I'm in a small town in a little state, and we don't, really, we're kind of surrounded by mountains, so we don't have that type of issue. It kind of protects us from the weather. So it's hard for me to really get the pictures I'm seeing coming out of LA. I mean, it just looks terrible.
Yes, it does. When I was going to university, I worked in Jasper one summer.
Yeah.
And I loved working. Oh, what a great place to work. But last year, they had the same kind of experience, Jasper, Alberta. Well, we just would turn on the TV and, there's the pancake store burning up.
Yeah.
And you just think, how do you reestablish yourself when that kind of thing happens?
Well, that's it. I mean, the government will come in, they'll help people survive, but that's the hard part. How do you get, back to that same point in your life? Because it's definitely a big setback. It's going to take some effort. And even just recovering, it's going to affect you with work, with everything, because you've lost your stability.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose if you're thinking about people and their careers, it used to be you would have a career, you'd go into some organization, you would move your way up, hopefully steadily.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody the other day that when I first worked, the rule of thumb was that the bottom person should not earn less, like the top person should not earn more than 10 times the bottom. So if the bottom person earned 5,000, the top person earned 50.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking about that and I thought, wow, that sounds incredible now. I mean, we took it as gospel that that was the kind of the relative thing. Yeah. We don't now have the top person earning only 10 times what the bottom person earns.
It's kind of gotten out of hand. I mean, it really has, because you've got executives making just insane amount of money. And then you've got, the whole workforce struggling. That makes no sense the way we do it.
Well, it leads people like me to thinking about, okay, what do you really want in your life and how much money do you need to buy it?
Sure. That's a fair question.
And it is a fair question. And it's like back at writing books, I could make, when I was a CEO, in one day as much as I'm ever going to make from this book.
Yeah, right.
And that's if you and I succeed in making it popular, which I'm hoping we're going to do.
Yeah, no, we will. We will. Yeah, I think it's going to do very well. Yeah.
Well, I hope so. But I'm doing that for love.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can only do something for love if you've had the good fortune to have a base.
That's right. Yeah, if you've got no base, then your creativity is stifled.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have no base, you have different anxieties. Like my anxiety today was I was very nervous about my first podcast.
Well, what do you think so far?
Oh, well, a good friend of mine said, it's good to be nervous. She said, it'll get better, you'll get better as you go along.
Well, I've done, if you can believe it, I've done almost 900 interviews. 900. And this is, we've been doing this for 6 years. So yeah, it's pretty good volume.
Wow.
I get nervous before every interview.
Do you really?
I do. I mean, not like crazy, but I
get a little nervous.
But once I get on there and start talking, I'm fine. It's just, it's kind of like nervous energy, but not really negative energy.
No, it wasn't negative for me either. Yeah. It wasn't negative. It was kind of, my kids were saying things like, Mom, your stories. I have stories. Don't drag him into those stories.
You can drag me wherever you need to go, because I've got stories too.
Yeah, exactly.
I met, I've got a group of buddies. We've been friends for 50 years, and we got together over the holidays for a weekend. And that's what we were doing. Normally we'd have, our wives or girlfriends with us, but this time it was just the guys. And so we told all those stories because there was nobody to tell us, we've heard these before.
Well, and some of them are wonderful to relive.
Exactly. Exactly. And it didn't matter. It's not the story's not the point. It's the bonding that comes from reminiscing about the stories.
Yes.
But I get it. If I had to hear the same stories over and over, I might get tired of them. It's a little different when you're part of the story as opposed to just listening to the story.
Yes, exactly. Well, I was thinking about a story that I loved remembering, which was I worked right up till my due date with my second child, and I had a job I really liked. I was an antitrust investigator, and so we investigated business practices, and it was very interesting, stimulating, hard work. Yeah. So anyway, on what was 3 days before my due date, or 3 or 4, all of a sudden I had pain and stuff. And one of my colleagues said, "Oh, well, Sheelagh, I'll drive you to the hospital."
Yeah.
So he drove me to the hospital. I let my spouse know that I was at the hospital. And then I was at the hospital, I think, for a day. And nothing was happening, So I went home. And then, Monday comes around and I'm at home waiting for the baby. I think, and my boss phones me. He was a World War II vet. He was fabulous. He says, "Sheelagh," he says, what are you doing? And I said, I'm waiting at home for the baby. And he said, well, get in here. We need you. So I went back to work.
I love that.
And I worked the next 2 days. And then the real labor pains came.
Yeah.
And I went off and had the baby. But I just thought it was so wonderful in retrospect that he would say, get in here. We need you.
Yeah. Most bosses wouldn't do that.
No.
And they should. You know,
Yeah.
if I was at home and my boss called me and said they needed me, I'd probably go into work.
Well, because you feel good.
Yeah, it makes you feel good.
And it was sure boring when I was just sitting there, you know.
He kind of rescued you.
He did rescue me. He was a great guy. He was a great boss. He taught me a lot of things.
If you've been through a war,
yeah,
I would guess that nothing else is really going to affect you. You know, you're not going to get as upset about normal day-to-day type of stresses.
You're exactly right. He was a wing commander.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, anything with airplanes.
In the RAF, because he had gone over early in the war and signed up, and he was a wing commander in the RAF. And I think if you've been that, nothing much scares you.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Why would you get, you know, and I'm sure you get nervous still too. We all do that. But why would you get too upset about anything after you survive that?
No, yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
I always tell myself that because I'm an introvert, and it's I never would have imagined that I'd spend my time just talking with people. You know, I had to get over that a little bit. But yeah, I always tell people that you know, if you're nervous about doing something, the best way to get over it is just to do it. You know, just find your space where you can do whatever it is, and it's a safe space. You know, so, you know, like for me, when I first started the podcast, I only shared it with people that I really respected and cared about their opinion, and that I knew felt the same way about me. So they'd give me honest feedback, but they do it in a positive way.
Yes.
So it's just kind of a safe space, but that got me or allowed me to get my footing. And then I was able to go from there. And I think everybody's that way. You got to have that opportunity to grow where you're not just crippled by anxiety or stress.
Well, one of the reasons these days, like a couple of my grandkids are in co-op university programs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that gives you a chance to be out there in the workplace, make some mistakes, and hopefully you don't end up going back to that company or something. But right. It's so much better than the way we used to have it, where we just come out and go into the workplace and make our mistakes in public.
That's truth. I tell the kids that all the time. It's like, I have failed so many times and screwed things up so many times. But, you know, if you let it defeat you, then that's what happens. But if you just say, okay, learn from it, and then you don't make that mistake again, then it's a positive experience.
Well, and the same thing from the employer's point of view in a co-op program. They've got somebody who's had a chance to make a few mistakes.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's almost a little chance for a little rehab. Little professional rehab.
A little professional rehab. That's right.
No, that's the truth. I think, you know, I spent the bulk of my working career before I started podcasting, running call centers, and it, you know, so it's a large group of people. And I always found, you know, you treat people with respect, you give them a path to advance, you know, you try to tailor your needs with theirs, and you do that type of stuff as a boss, and it, you know, it inspires that loyalty. But you're also helping yourself, because then you get people that are qualified, they're motivated, and you're moving them up through the system. You know, I've worked for a lot of people that, you know, they were very, they held really tightly to their position. So they were very nervous. If anybody started doing well, they might be coming for my job. So they hold those people down. I wouldn't like that as a boss. Not that I didn't have my own problems, but I always felt like it only helps me to see my
if they're
people
better.
advance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even, I've even had instances where someone that worked for me at some point down the road, I was working for them. And that probably never would have happened if I had, held them back.
And I bet they were really good bosses in their turn.
They were really good bosses, and
Yeah.
it establishes those bonds that, make work bearable, because sometimes work can be stressful. It can be difficult. But
very
if you've
stressful.
got a group that you're working with and you're all moving in the same direction, everybody's pulling their weight, not that mistakes don't happen, but it's such a good environment to work in. And that's when you end up seeing people advance, to blossom, to grow, all the good things.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was at Canadian Satellite Communications, we had a call center.
Oh, yeah.
And one day my assistant said, Sheelagh, they fired this person from the call center, and she's been treated with all the proper HR, but she wants to come in and talk to the president before she goes, which is pretty unusual. But I said, well, okay, bring her in. I'll talk to her.
Why not?
And she said, I wanted to talk to you and explain. She said, I have social needs. In the morning, when I go into work, I have to have a chance to talk to my colleagues. I have to have a chance to have a cup of coffee. I've got to have a chance, to figure out the news of the day. Now, the people who are my bosses, they wanted me to come in and work right away.
Right.
And she said, I didn't want to work right away because I had to fulfill this process.
Sure.
And I said,
the question is, how long does that process take?
Exactly. Well, and I said, I think that's very good that you know that need.
Yeah.
And it appears that that process took a bit too long.
Yes.
On a sustained basis. But we have appreciated you working with us, and we hope that you'll go out and find something that enables you to get the balance that you need.
Yeah.
Well, so she went off happy.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of part company.
She went off happy. I kind of giggled at our call center meeting people's social needs.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't usually happen in a call center.
No, that's not what usually happens in a call center.
Because usually call center, it's pretty much as soon as you sit down, you're working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it doesn't really let up. So I totally,
it's hard work.
Get that.
Call center is hard work.
Hard work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was difficult running a call center. I did not have the hard job. The hard job's being on the phones. And that's because you're just dealing with customer after customer after customer. And they're not calling because everything's great.
No. No. When I phone a call center, as I often need to, I try and be really kind of friendly and thoughtful to the person who's answered. Because I know
it's not their whatever's happening is not their fault.
Not their fault. Not their fault. And and why would I try and vent some kind of frustration on them?
Right. Sometimes not easy to not do that. I've definitely vented some frustration in my
Sometimes it's not easy. I prefer to maybe vent it on a donut.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I could do some venting on some food.
Yeah, I could do some venting or maybe a turtle or something, like a chocolate turtle. I got some for Christmas.
Yeah. That'd be pretty good. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, that's I love it. I love the way it sounds like you manage, because it sounds very open. It sounds like you try to meet the needs of your subordinates. And that's really, for me when I was working, that's all I wanted from a boss. I just wanted an opportunity and to be treated fairly and to be treated respectfully. And if you did that, then I'm going to give you my best effort.
Well, and that's what I aspired to. That I definitely.
Well, it sounds like you did that for the most part. That's commendable, because it's not always the case, and everybody gets caught up trying to get it, advance and trying to help their career, and sometimes we don't pause to make sure that everybody that we're working alongside of that's doing the same thing, that they're okay.
Yeah.
It works. It's difficult, and it can be a little cutthroat unless you intentionally make sure it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounded like you did. I'd work for you.
Oh, I'd work with you.
luckily, I'm just podcasting now. The podcast took off. I was able to kind of let that
Well, and
stuff
luckily,
go. But
someone said, "Well, what book will you write next, Sheelagh?" And I
yeah,
said, "I want to hear what people want to know.
I like
I'm
that.
going to try and pay attention as I go along to
Yeah.
what people say they want to know, and see if I can make that into a useful book."
Oh, I'm sure you could. I love the fact that you're looking to write another book. This didn't sour you on the experience. You must have
Oh no,
enjoyed it.
no, it was important, actually, because I'd had some setbacks in my life. I'd had my husband died,
Oh,
and one of my children died,
that's terrible.
and I had a big back operation of furious, and so I was in a cluster of, you could go down.
Yeah, it can drag you down.
You could really drag you down. And then I think you talked to him, Neil Seaman.
Oh, I did talk to Neil.
Yeah, I met him, and he said, "Well, Sheelagh," he said, "why don't you write me a book?"
I love Neil. I know Neil's been on me to try to write something too, and I was like, I'm not against it. It's just I got to find the time to sit down and do it.
He is amazing.
Love Neil.
Amazing.
Yeah,
and he came along just at the right time, and I thought, well, all right, Neil,
I'll give it a go. I know, and he comes across like he's so earnest and positive, and he's telling you should write a book, and you're like, maybe I should.
And he works all the time. His output is colossal because he's a university professor, and
I know, and he's so energetic. I love talking with him. That was one of my favorite interviews. I thought he was terrific.
I'm sure.
Well, and he's out there trying. He's trying to run a business, but he's out there really trying to help authors get exposure and to kind of help them through the process. Putting out a book's not easy.
No, for sure.
The writing's honestly the easy part.
Yes, it is.
I mean, relatively speaking, because
I agree with you. The publication part, like now, trying to articulate what you thought you were doing is hard.
That's hard.
It's hard, very hard.
Well, you're doing it really well.
I
thought I thought the book, not just really well done, but timely. I think we're to that point now where most of us are actively trying to even things up with everybody that's out there in the workforce. So I think the timing is really good.
Thanks.
I think it's going to be well received.
What I was thinking was we'd had the revolution, the feminist revolution, and any revolution, society can only allot it so much time.
Right.
But we got far enough that now we can have an evolution.
Yeah. I like that. Revolution, evolution.
And so I think we're in a good evolution spot.
Yeah, I do too.
And
if you just look at, Hollywood.
Yes.
The last decade, much more diverse than what we had in the previous decade. We still got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing women's vision, women directors, women starring in lead roles, even in action movies.
Yes.
So you've got minorities, are now starting to produce things. It's definitely getting better. Still got a ways to go, but you can see a change. I'd say 2000 or 2010 to now, that 15-year period, it's changed quite a bit.
It's changed a lot. Changed a lot. And what I'm hoping now is that we'll be an evolution and we'll trickle down to some of the nations that are in chaos.
Yes, a lot of them.
Chaos. And
some would say the U.S. is one of those nations.
Well, of course, we Canadians are always acutely aware, not only that we say Z, but that we We pay attention to American politics.
Oh, I'm sure we do the same. I saw the news with Justin and stuff coming out that surprised me, but I'm not real in tune with the Canadian politics. But I was like, okay, because he seems so popular from our perspective until he wasn't.
Oh, well, he was a good guy. I liked his dad a lot. That shows my generation. His father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was a great prime minister.
Yeah,
to my taste.
I think a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
Politics are just so tricky, and for us here in the States, the revolution we're needing for our political system, it just needs to get younger. We've just got. We're too skewed to the older generation.
No, that's well put. I hadn't thought of that. Younger, because it is bound up in a lot of old guys sitting around. They don't seem to be smoking cigars, but I bet they do behind her.
Yeah.
But it needs to loosen up.
I mean, that's it. I mean, the world has changed so much over the decades, but you still got the same people in those positions of power. And that, I think, is kind of stifling some of the change. So, it's, in my opinion, we just need to get some of that younger generation into politics and get those new ideas and new viewpoints and diversify it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think that would fix a lot of our issues. In the States, and I'm sure other countries are like that as well.
You think about the metaphor, of those older people. Like, I just got a new update on my phone, a new version of my phone.
Yeah.
And even though I was in the IT business, it was not a breeze.
No.
Adapting. And yet, if I, gone with my grandson, he would have had
nothing for him.
Nothing for him. No. And that applies to politics too.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah, my parents think that I am a technical genius. And I may be compared to them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm terrible. I may be able to do what they need. It's going to take me so much longer. So I always tell them, I'm like, call your grandkids. They will get this done so much faster than I will.
Yeah, they'll go boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
boom,
it's done.
Boom. Yeah. Why didn't you do that, Grandma?
Well, Sheelagh, thank you for taking some time. The book looks terrific. Let me read the name again. It's Through the Glass Ceiling, Reflections on Feminism from the C-Suite. Where can we find the book?
Well, I'm hoping it will be in your local bookstore. Right now, you can pre-order it. But I'm hoping that conversations like ours will encourage your local bookshops to carry it and to be able to make it available to lots of people.
Oh, I hope it will as well. I can tell you that my son who does the editing for us on the podcast, he does all the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But he's a librarian during the day. I can tell you that he is ordering copies for the library, if that helps at all. So,
well, that will help.
There you go. He has ordered, to his credit, everybody that Neil or everybody that Neil's working with, author-wise, we've gotten their books into that library.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Eldon Sprinkerhoff, for example.
Yeah, we've had Eldon on. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a timely book. I've bought Eldon's book because
great book.
Two of my sons are in sort of tech startups, and I think his book is very timely.
Oh, it is. I love talking. He's so well spoken. It's
he is. He's very well spoken.
Really enjoyed talking to him. But so we'll have it. You'll be have it if you drive through Putnam County in West Virginia, your book's going to be at that library.
Oh, what a thrill that would be. What a thrill. I tell you.
No, I think it's going to do really, really well, Sheelagh. I really do, because I think one thing with Neil, he doesn't waste his time either. He's so positive, but if he didn't really think that the book was worthwhile, he wouldn't let you do it.
I think that's true. I hope it's true. I hope it's true.
No, I think it is true. I really don't think he would.
He makes me feel like that's true.
Yeah. I think he'd tell you if it really wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I think he'd be honest about that. But you know, if he likes it, it's good. I feel strongly about that. So okay, Sheelagh.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I hope you'll come back when you write that second book.
I will. I will. Promise. Yeah.
Hopefully, this experience didn't scare you off from doing other podcasts.
Okay.
Sheelagh, your publicist, she is the best. She always sends me the best people. Absolutely love her. Yeah, she's just terrific. Okay, last thing though, before I let you go, are you on social media? And if you are, where can we find you?
No, I'm not on Facebook, and I'm not on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn in a kind of low-key way.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not particularly on social media.
No. How about website? Anything like that?
I don't have one, but maybe now that I'm in this grown-up world of I should have one.
Yeah, you should have a little book website. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
I bet Neil could help with that.
Yeah, I bet he could. No, one of my daughters is a Crown prosecutor, and her wife is a superintendent of police. And so disseminating a lot of information on social media about your family in those kind of cases, that can be dangerous.
No, I totally get that. My brother, he was with the NSA here in the States for years, and same thing. You had to be really careful about what you posted about. And he's retired from that now, so I can kind of talk about it. But he was always that way. He was always doing that. He'd come to the house and he'd be like, let's go out back and talk.
You mean you didn't have a cone of silence?
Cone of silence. Yeah, that was good. And I'm the opposite. Like I would be the world's worst spy, because the first thing I'd do, I'd probably be on Facebook saying, let me tell you what I'm getting ready to do.
My family used to say that if you wanted to know all our family's secrets, just ride behind Sheelagh on a bus. Because she would tell total strangers on the bus.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm just an open book.
Me too.
I got no secrets. There's maybe some things you might be interested in, but there's no secrets. If you want to know, just ask. I'll tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure. Real pleasure. Okay.
Oh, same here. We have to do it again at some point.
Yes.
All right. Hold on one second. Sheelagh Whittaker, the book is Through the Glass Ceiling, Reflections on Feminism from the C-Suite. Please support what Sheelagh is doing. One of the great things with this podcast is we've been very blessed to have just terrific authors on the show. We kind of promote that we're an entertainment-based podcast, which for us means a lot of actors, a lot of directors, they're on show. But we love talking with authors, and we've done dozens of these interviews, but I only do the ones that I really, really think the book is worth reading. Sheilagh's definitely applies to that. Do yourself a favor, check that out, give Sheelagh your support. I mean, she's kind of a powerhouse. She's run a couple of companies. She's done some investigation, like antitrust type of investigation. She's worked up through the ranks. Obviously, just talking to her, you can tell very intelligent, very strategic. She just terrific. She's the first female CEO of a Toronto Stock Exchange listed company. A big deal. That's a big deal. Sheelagh grew up in a time where women were definitely held back. I mean, it's going on today. We talked about, I've seen that with my wife and the struggles that she's had in her career. So it's still going on, but I think it was worse in that latter half of the 20th century. Definitely was. Through the Glass Ceiling, please give Sheelagh your support. And if you enjoyed this interview, we've got an author playlist. So if you're looking for a good book, check out our author playlist. And I think you'll find a bunch there. Because like I said, we don't have them on unless I really love the book. So definitely check that out. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you for being here. We're really happy about that, and we would love to have your support. We're a father and son team. We're in a little town, St. Albans, West Virginia, probably a couple thousand people. But, we're in a little town in a little state. The city of Los Angeles has more people than we have in the entire state of West Virginia. It hasn't been easy growing this podcast, but it's been so much fun. And thankfully, due to our listeners, our viewers, we've managed to make it work. And it's so much better, bigger than we ever could have imagined. So thank you for that. But if you're new, a couple easy ways you can support us. They're both free. Our YouTube channel, if I can remember both of them, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps us out, helps us to bring in these terrific guests. Our website is meistercon.com. You can find almost 900 episodes, audio and video versions. It'll tell you what we're doing in studio, if we're going on location, covering a convention, anything we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there as well. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.